A wealthy socialite thought she'd found the perfect entertainment for her dinner party, humiliating her domestic worker's teenage son in a game of chess. What she didn't know was that she was about to face off against a self-taught prodigy who had been studying the game in secret for nearly a decade. This is the story of how one chess match changed everything. Please support this channel by giving this video a like and subscribe for more stories. Come here, boy. Show these people how they play chess in the townships. Nomsa Vanderbiel's voice cut through the elegant dining room of her Clifton mansion like a blade. The 45-year-old property heiress had organized this charity fundraiser for disadvantaged youth. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present that she was about to use an actual disadvantaged youth as her evening's entertainment. Thabo Mthembu, 17 years old, was helping his mother Zanele serve canapes to Cape Town's elite when Nomsa decided to make him the centerpiece of her twisted joke. The guests, wine estate owners, politicians, and their trophy wives, chuckled behind their crystal glasses, already anticipating the spectacle. "I bet he knows how the horsey moves," whispered Johann Pretorius, owner of a luxury hotel chain in the Western Cape. The laughter rippled through the room like poison. Zanele Mthembu had been cleaning this house for 15 years. 15 years of raising her son alone on a domestic worker's salary, watching her employer transform from a spoiled young woman into this cruel socialite. She gripped the silver serving tray tighter, her knuckles white with suppressed anger. "Zanele, you can stop serving," Nomsa commanded with mock sweetness. "I want you to watch your son play. It'll be educational." But Thabo stood perfectly still, his dark eyes not just studying the ornate chess set, but reading every face in the room. At 17, he'd learned that silence reveals more about people than words ever could. And what he saw was a room full of privileged adults who had no idea what they were about to witness. "Of course, Mrs. Vanderbiel," Thabo replied, his voice carrying a calmness that made several guests stop mid-conversation. "It would be my pleasure." Nomsa settled into her leather chair like a queen preparing for gladiatorial combat. "Excellent. I bet you've never played on a board like this, have you? Genuine Carrara marble, each piece worth more than, well, you understand." City Councilor Sarah Jacobs, sitting by the window, shifted uncomfortably. "Nomsa, are you sure this isn't cruel? The poor boy will be humiliated." "Nonsense." Nomsa adjusted her diamond necklace. "It's a learning opportunity. He'll tell his friends he played chess in a real mansion." What Nomsa Vanderbiel didn't know, and would discover in the most devastating way possible, was that this township boy had spent the last 9 years devouring every chess book, every strategy, every grandmaster game he could find. While his classmates played soccer in dusty streets, Thabo studied Kasparov, Fischer, and Colson on a second-hand laptop he'd repaired himself. In the early morning hours, when Zanele worked double shifts cleaning office buildings, Thabo analyzed legendary matches by candlelight. He'd memorized over 300 opening variations and could recite the 50 most famous defensive strategies in chess history. But most importantly, Nomsa had no idea she was about to be systematically destroyed by the same boy she'd underestimated, in front of all her powerful friends. "I always play white, dear," Nomsa announced, ignoring basic chess etiquette. "Family tradition." Thabo nodded silently, arranging his black pieces with surgical precision. Each piece placed exactly center square, perfectly aligned, as if this marble masterpiece was just another of the hundreds of boards he'd conquered in his mind. "Let's make this interesting," Nomsa declared to her audience. "If the boy gives me even one genuine scare, I'll donate a 10,000 to, some township school." The room erupted in laughter, but Thabo looked up with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Zanele felt her heart skip. She knew that smile. It was the same one he'd worn at age 10 when he'd challenged his school's mathematics teacher to a calculation contest. Nomsa opened with 1d4, King's Pawn. "A classical opening, boy. We learned this at university." Thabo's response was instant. 1c5. The Sicilian defense. The laughter died instantly. That wasn't a beginner's move, it was the weapon of someone who understood theory. "Interesting," murmured Councilor Jacobs, leaning forward. Nomsa hesitated for 5 seconds, long enough for Thabo to realize she'd memorized perhaps 6 openings without understanding the principles behind them. While she pondered her next move, Thabo's mind drifted to 9 years earlier. He'd been 8 when he found a water-damaged chess book in the library's discard pile. "Ma, why do you want to learn this?" Zanele had asked, exhausted after cleaning offices all night. "To prove we're as smart as they say they are, Ma. Maybe smarter." There was no money for lessons, no computer, no coach. Just the municipal library, which became Thabo's sanctuary. Every day after school, he'd walk 4 kilometers to study games in dusty books nobody else touched. 2 and F3, Nomsa finally moved, following a pattern she'd probably learned at some social club. 2, NC6, Thabo developed with purpose, each move executed in under 3 seconds. "The little boy is moving too fast," Nomsa commented condescendingly. "In real chess, you think before you move." That's when Thabo made his first psychological gambit. He paused, pretended to think deeply for 20 seconds, then played 3, G6, preparing a fiancé that was actually part of a devastating strategic plan. "Ah, you see?" Nomsa turned triumphantly to her guests. "No patience. Typical." But Johann Pretorius, who'd played chess at university decades ago, recognized the pattern. "Nomsa, that boy is setting up the dragon variation." "The what?" she snapped, annoyed at being interrupted. "It's a Sicilian system. Quite sophisticated, actually." As the moves progressed, something unsettling began happening. Thabo wasn't just responding to Nomsa's moves, he was conducting the game like a symphony. Every piece developed to its optimal square, creating harmony that transformed the board into visual poetry. Zanele watched from the corner, her heart pounding. She'd known her son was gifted, but she'd never seen him play someone who took themselves this seriously. For the first time in 15 years of working in this house, she saw fear creep into Nomsa Vanderbiel's eyes. By move 10, Thabo had sacrificed a pawn in what looked like a blunder but was actually a deadly trap that would reveal itself 5 moves later. "Nomsa," Pretorius whispered urgently, "this boy is no amateur." But Nomsa was too invested in proving her superiority to listen. "Relax, Johann. He must have memoized some internet moves. I'll finish this in 5 minutes." That's when something extraordinary happened. Thabo calmly stood up and walked to his mother, who was watching with clasped hands from the corner. "Ma," he said quietly, his voice carrying through the tense silence, "remember when you said that one day I'd show these people who we really are?" Zanele nodded, tears glistening. She remembered perfectly. It was the day Thabo turned 14 and she couldn't afford a birthday cake. She'd found him comforting her in their tiny kitchen, promising that someday everything would change. "That boy has more dignity than all of us combined," Councilor Jacobs murmured to her husband. "Can we continue?" Nomsa tapped her manicured nails impatiently. "I have other commitments." Thabo returned to the board, but something had shifted. He was no longer the shy teenager invited for entertainment. He was a young man carrying years of sacrifice, secret study, and determination forged in adversity. His 11th move was surgical precision that made Nomsa frown for the first time. He'd created a double threat: save the king, lose the queen; save the queen, face checkmate in 3 moves. That's impossible," Nomsa muttered, studying the board with genuine concern. "Nomsa," Pretorius said slowly, "you're being outplayed by a kid who's probably never set foot in a formal chess club." While Nomsa desperately searched for escape routes, Thabo observed every face in the room. Councilor Jacobs had stopped sipping wine. Pretorius had abandoned his phone. Even the hotel owner's wife, who'd been scrolling through Instagram, was now riveted. Zanele recognized that look on her son's face: pure focus. The same expression he'd worn studying by candlelight when their electricity was cut off, the same intensity he'd shown solving tactical puzzles at 5 a.m. before school. Nomsa finally moved, a desperate attempt to escape the trap. But Thabo had calculated this possibility 6 moves ago. Check, he said simply, positioning his queen to offer 3 different winning continuations. The silence was deafening. Nomsa's hands were trembling now, not from fear, but from contained rage at being systematically dismantled by someone she considered beneath her. "You must have seen this sequence somewhere," she said, her voice pitched higher than normal. "Nobody learns this alone." Thabo smiled genuinely for the first time. "You're right. I learned it from Gary Kasparov." "Kasparov taught you?" Pretorius asked incredulously. "Not personally," Thabo replied, moving to what was clearly the final position. "But I studied all his documented games. 1,847 to be exact. He used this exact sequence against Karpov in 1984, Game 16 of the World Championship." Nomsa looked around the room, searching for support in familiar faces. But for the first time in her life, she found something she'd never seen directed at her: silent disapproval. Zanele stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "My son wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning to study before school. He walked 8 kilometers to the library because we couldn't afford the internet. When I worked night shifts, he solved chess problems by candlelight because our electricity was disconnected." The room fell completely silent. Thabo looked at his mother with love and determination that made several guests look away in shame. "Checkmate," he said softly, placing his queen in the final position. Nomsa stared at the board as if expecting the pieces to rearrange themselves. When she finally looked up, she found Thabo watching her with the same unruffled calm he'd maintained throughout, but now everything in the room had changed. The guests no longer saw Diego as entertainment. They saw him as someone who had just rewritten every assumption they held about talent, class, and merit. And they looked at Nomsa with embarrassment and disappointment she'd never experienced before. That was luck," she stammered, her voice shaking. "He memorized one specific sequence." Pretorius stood up and examined the board. "Nomsa, that boy just executed a variation I didn't even know existed. And I've been playing for 40 years. Councilor Jacobs discreetly pulled out her phone, recognizing the viral potential of this moment, a racist socialite humiliated by a prodigy she'd underestimated. "I don't accept this," Nomsa said, standing abruptly and knocking over several pieces. "Something's wrong here. Someone trained him specifically to humiliate me." Thabo remained seated, watching her with perfect calm. "Would you like a rematch? I can play everyone here simultaneously, if you prefer." The offer sent nervous murmurs through the room. After what they'd witnessed, nobody dared doubt him. "You're being arrogant," Nomsa snapped, her face flushed with anger. "A boy from the townships doesn't speak to his betters like that." That's when Zanele stepped forward and, for the first time in 15 years, looked Nomsa Vanderbiel directly in the eye without lowering her head. "Mrs. Vanderbiel," Zanele said, her voice steady and clear, "my son is not from the townships. We're from a working-class community. And his not being arrogant, his being honest about his abilities. Something you clearly cannot do about yours." The tension exploded. Nomsa turned to Zanele with fury. "How dare you speak to me that way? Have you forgotten your place in this house?" "No," Zanele replied calmly. "I remembered my worth." Thabo finally stood up, and when he spoke, his voice carried a maturity that silenced every adult present. "Mrs. Vanderbiel, I wasn't trained to humiliate you. I spent 9 years studying chess because I dreamed of playing against people who respected the game, people who understood that talent has no color, no class, no surname. When you invited me to show how they play in the townships, I thought I'd finally get a chance to prove I deserved respect. But I realize now, you never wanted a fair match. You wanted a show." Councilor Jacobs had stopped recording. "How old are you, son?" 17. "And you're completely self-taught?" "Yes." Jacobs looked at Nomsa with disgust. "You've just been defeated by a self-taught teenager. A teenager whose family you employ. A teenager you invited to play as entertainment." The weight of every gaze in the room fell on Nomsa. For the first time in her life, they weren't looks of admiration or envy. They were looks of judgment. Thabo calmly reset the pieces with precision. "Thank you for the game, Mrs. Vanderbilt. It was educational." As he turned to leave with his mother, Councilor Jacobs called out, "Thabo, are you interested in university scholarships? I know several institutions that would value your talent." Thabo stopped and smiled his first genuine smile of the evening. "Very interested." Jacobs handed him her business card. "Call me Monday morning." 6 months later, Thabo Mthembu walked through the University of Cape Town engineering faculty on a full scholarship. The video of that night had gone viral, 2.8 million views in 3 weeks. Not because someone had secretly recorded it, but because Councilor Jacobs herself had shared the story, turning Thabo into a symbol of triumph over prejudice. Nomsa Vanderbilt became a social pariah. Her country club membership was revoked, charities removed her from events, and former friends avoided her calls. Zanele was promoted to facilities manager at a luxury hotel in Camps Bay, triple the salary, full benefits, and the respect she'd always deserved. Thabo founded a free online chess program connecting township youth with university mentors. Within 6 months, over 800 children were learning not just chess moves, but life strategies. "Chess taught me that every person has unique strategic value," Thabo explained during his CNN interview. "Mrs. Vanderbilt taught me that some people need to lose everything to learn what truly matters." When asked if he held grudges, Thabo smiled with the same calm he'd shown that fateful night. "Grudges are pieces that only slow down your game. I prefer focusing on what I can build." Today, Thabo sees no limitations, only possibilities created by his own determination. He proved that true nobility isn't inherited through surnames or bank accounts, but earned through character forged in adversity. The best revenge, as Thabo discovered, isn't destroying those who try to diminish you. It's building something so extraordinary that their mediocrity becomes irrelevant. Nomsa Vanderbilt tried to make him entertainment. Thabo Mthembu became an inspiration. And that difference defines not just who wins at chess, but who wins at life. If this story of triumph over prejudice moved you, smash that like button, subscribe for more incredible stories, and share this with your friends. What would you have done in Thabo's position? Let me know in the comments below.